All right, well, welcome to Patient-Specific Conversations with Axial 3D, where we explore patient-specific surgery and the medical technology, people, and innovation behind it. I'm Rory Hanratty, and I host the podcast. Today's episode, we're talking with Rick Swanson, who's Associate Director of Patient Solutions at a really interesting company called Onkos. And we're going to chat today about orthopedic patient-specific, or as Onkos put it, patient-inspired solutions. So sit back, relax, and get inspired, as the future of patient-specific surgery is just a conversation away. So, Rick, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking the time. Well, good. So just to kick off, can you tell us a little bit about Onkos and your role there and a little bit of your experience in the world of patient-specific?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Onkos was founded in 2015, and really the genesis of why Onkos was founded was based on focusing on musculoskeletal oncology and complex orthopedic revisions. Because as our founders had noticed, a lot of the larger players in the market had really been focusing on primary arthroplasty instead of musculoskeletal oncology, because a lot of those are very unique. They require a lot of patient-specific solutions, and there weren't really companies focused on that. So, again, that was kicked off in 2015, and a big thing is our Onkos why. We have it on our wall in our office. It's on the back of our business cards. It's just kind of the mantra that we have, and it's basically that we believe individuals with cancer and other complex orthopedic conditions that require surgery deserve solutions designed specifically for them. So that's kind of that's the reason why we do what we do. Our company has focused on a lot of different innovation verticals. The three that are kind of the pillars of what we do are aseptic loosening, soft tissue attachment, and infection management. And we've intertwined those into all of the patient-specific solutions that we work on.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. And one of the things that you mentioned there as well, which I think is interesting, is like it's like 2015 is not that long ago, right? Like that's kind of relatively recent in terms of a company's evolution and so on as well. And I guess if we look back to 2015 at the time, like you've mentioned, a lot of the kind of arthroplasties that were out there from the bigger organizations were very much what you would call, I suppose, off the shelf. So if you need like a hip replacement or knee replacement, or whatever it happens to be, that's for some people, they may not realize that whilst, yes, you are a patient receiving an implant, that's not specific to you. So could you talk to us a little bit about that difference between, and this is what I always found a little bit kind of counterintuitive when I first heard the phrase patient specific. I was like, how can a surgery not be patient specific? But for you, what does patient specific or patient inspired, like what does that actually translate to into the type of devices that you guys make?
Yeah, definitely. So we always use the word, patient matched and patient specific. Patient matched, to your point, you have off the shelf products that come in varying sizes, usually within 510(k) clearances, and there could be a size 1 through 5, and you match that size with the patient. So it's patient matched. It's not necessarily patient specific. The, our My3D portfolio, everything, my patient solutions engineering team does is patient specific. So those implants, they're not off the shelf. What they are designed specifically for an individual patient. There's a patient name, there's a surgeon who's requested it. And in those instances, we are actually designing an implant specifically for that patient's anatomy. And a lot of that is based on 3D modeling, the software we use, the technology, similarly, that Axial plays a large role in as well, to kind of provide a solution to a complex clinical condition that is specific for that patient.
I guess that's the thing with some of the products in the portfolio which are aimed specifically at oncology cases, is that's the really difficult thing with that type of condition, is that no type of tumor or cancer is the same. It's going to be different each and every single time, and the kind of the spread or the impact of that is going to be different, which is why having patient specific solutions is so important for those type of patients.
Yeah, it really is. Honestly, 3D data and technology is kind of the foundation for our suite of products, and it's a portfolio differentiator for Onkos specifically, because everything we do from a patient-specific standpoint is really tied to how do we use that precision and specificity of the patient's anatomy, of the pathology of the tumor, of the models that are provided to us from a surgeon that we segment to, we say we interview the anatomy. That's kind of
Okay, yeah.
the term we use when we meet with surgeons. And that's really giving the surgeon the ability to kind of step through every aspect of that patient's unique anatomy, every aspect of the tumor, and kind of pre-plan and get a better understanding of the patient's anatomy. So that way, when they're thinking through what specific treatment plan they want, they have everything at their disposal and all the information is in front of them. So it allows them to, lack a better term, look around a corner instead of coming up with something in the OR
Right.
where they might not have been able to think about it as much. That's the big push that the patient solutions engineering team does, is to kind of just give those surgeons the ability to pre-plan.
And I think that's an interesting kind of point to probably expand a little bit on, is that traditionally pre-surgical planning, and if we look at the kind of the broader off-the-shelf market, is based on the idea of typically x-rays and templating to go ahead and do any types of arthroplasties, whereas what you folks do at Onkos is it's actually truly three-dimensional. It's taken the kind of the imaging for that patient and being able to create that kind of extra view, or that kind of means to look around the corner to get better planning in place for what they're going to do, right?
Yep. Yeah, it really is. The way our process starts, I kind of outline it. There's a couple major phases, but the biggest one is really getting that 3D imaging. So as I say, like the suite of products, not only 3D modeling and all the 3D design and kind of that, say the next generation of AL, machine learning or
Mm-hmm.
AI machine learning,
Yeah.
but really just kind of starting from scratch of getting the imaging. So, our team does whatever we can to make the process easier. So getting imaging in, getting high quality CTs, MRIs, kind of getting them segmented quickly, giving the surgeons as much time as possible, because often, there could be as little as days before surgery, or there might
Right.
be weeks and months depending on treatment plans and, patient pathology. So we really do focus on the core of the process, which is the imaging. So getting that imaging, and then really getting a surgeon on. So we'll get surgeons on with us, and we leverage the patient solutions engineers. There's over 15 biomedical engineers with a ton of experience in orthopedics and other, medical device design. And they're kind of the ones that work side by side with the surgeons, giving them the surgeons the information they need to make decisions and allowing the surgeon to ask us questions, and pretty much open as many doors as possible for the surgeon with the 3D models, going through 2D slices using, I'd say, different overlaid. So CT, MRI, you kind of
Mm.
different models, just combining whatever to give the surgeon the best window.
Right. And I think that's kind of, that feels somewhat unique then as well, is that like the idea of how this works is not just about the underlying technology that's been used to be able to create the kind of the implants. We get into that a little bit more in a bit, but that idea of almost co-creating the plan with the surgeon, and they're very much involved in the approach that's going to be taken, because ultimately at the end of the day there's a patient there, and they're in the hands of that surgeon. So like I guess what's been your experience of how surgeons have responded or reacted to this approach, and like how do they find? I'm guessing I'm kind of wondering, like, have you any stories of the difference that this approach makes for surgeons who are treating these types of patients?
A lot of surgeons really kind of provide feedback on the engagement with the engineers and, they'd say the clinical information the engineers have, because we work with a broad breadth of, clinical experts, surgeons, industry partners, and a lot of our engineers absorb that and then are able to share that information, pretty much one-on-one with every surgeon when they get on calls with us. So, we're taking the feedback of the hundreds of cases we've done,
Right.
bringing that to the table while the surgeon is coming at it from the, care provider, understanding their treatment plan, what the patient needs. And it's kind of that marrying of that process where we're using this, technology and 3D data, and then having the surgeon be able to just kind of look at it and understand what is best for the patient. And a lot of
Right.
the feedback we do get is, the engineers are very good in the planning and being able to use these tools to support the surgeon. And then that marries really nicely with the surgeons being able to kind of think ahead and almost save themselves from finding something out in the OR instead of finding it out on a call with us. And, we really put a lot of focus and attention on these patient specific models and trials that are
Mm,
provided with the either, patient specific instrumentation or patient specific implants because, you know, those models and trials not only are viewed on a screen with 3D anatomy, but they're also tangible items that they can hold and kind
right.
of have sterilized in the OR with them to actually bring back that tactile feel of understanding where they are relative to what was planned.
Absolutely. And that's something that we've heard from surgeons that we've talked to before as well, is that the kind of the difference that having those tactile models makes, or even the kind of like very, very well segmented and rendered digital versions of it, it avoids moments during the
Yep.
course of a surgery. And that's the least good place for that to happen. If that happens when you're holding a model and you're kind of like, that's okay. You're able to kind of plan around that and kind of work around it, which is very unique. Something I love that you said there as well, and I think that's kind of maybe something that's new as well with patient specific, is that you and your team are sort of sitting at a point where you're able to get feedback from lots and lots of different surgeons who are out in the field using these devices, but you're learning from them as you go as well, and that feedback is something that you can then share back. So it's a really, really lovely kind of feedback loop that
Yep.
develops there. And
It, oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say like that to me, look, we are early stage, but if that feels to me that's something that could be transformational in terms of how surgery works in future, right? Where the off the shelf model is, I take it, I have instructions completed, and I as a surgeon have learned how to do that procedure slightly better, but no one else has. Whereas with this model, it's very different, is that you have this ability to kind of absorb and get in the kind of relevant information from surgeons about how that went, but then that can be shared back out again, which feels new.
Exactly, and really is that kind of continually closing the loop because a lot of the stuff that our engineers really pride themselves on is learning from surgeons, absorbing what surgeon feedback, and taking that and applying it and asking the questions on a call with the surgeon to kind of continually pick their brain and really, you know, leverage that to make sure that if we did get feedback that it's accounted for in the next case. Because a lot of these things, our team really puts a lot of focus in continuing to invest in these broad regulatory pathways such as 510Ks. And a
Sure.
lot of that is, learning from cases and getting these broad clearances so we can not only streamline the process for the customers, but also continually provide a product that is best in class from a delivery standpoint, product quality, and be able to continue supporting the patients, which ultimately, our biggest focus is just how do we provide patient matched implants and instrumentation in the best and fastest way possible.
Right. Right. That's awesome. So, if you don't mind, could you talk us through a little bit of what the process looks like then for going from patient kind of presents and the surgeon kind of working all the way through to, the kind of post operative kind of part of the process. So successfully completed the procedure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll use our My3D pelvic 510K clearance. So it's our personalized pelvic reconstruction. It was
Cool.
a broad clearance that we had gotten for both oncology as well as complex revision cases. So it's
Mm.
basically, you know, acetabular implants. So we can make large oncology pelvic implants down to very small kind of revision cup,
Yeah.
or like smaller defect, different market segment implants. So, the process starts out with getting CT imaging. So we connect directly with hospitals to get imaging in the matter of minutes, sometimes
Mm.
in seconds, depending on, how fast the hospital responds. Um,
Yeah.
so we get it through HIPAA compliant methods and we get it in. We'll proceed to, do image verification, make sure it meets all our specifications for our clearance, and then complete segmentation. Once we get the segmentation done, we'll get a surgeon on a call with us, and really that call is kind of that interview. So we put the anatomy up on the
Right.
screen. The surgeon gives us their background. They'll go through pathology. They'll tell us what they're trying to achieve clinically, because for all these cases, just as unique as the patient anatomy is, what the surgeon is trying to do for that patient is unique. It might be surgeon driven, but it also might be patient driven. The patient might
Right.
say, listen, I just want to be ambulatory, or I want to be able to carry my child. There's a lot of things here that the surgeons account for.
Hmm.
So once we get on the call, we'll go through that, and then we pretty much start from the ground up to design the implant. So what the technology that we use through, many different softwares, working with different industry partners, is really me able to kind of design every specific aspect of the implant with the surgeon on the call. So we can review the anatomical alignment, understanding if they
Right.
want to make changes to that, what the impact to the patient's potential outcome would be by
Hmm.
realigning anatomy, limb length discrepancies, things like that.
Yep.
And then we pretty much step through. There's a specific process for how we go through to design for our 510(k) implants about placing screws, placing the cup hip center, understanding where that needs to be relative to the patient's contralateral side or what the surgeon's trying to do. So we
Hmm.
go through this whole process with the surgeon in about 25 to 30 minutes. And then once we do that, we'll finalize the design offline using all the surgeon's inputs. And then we provide 3D models as well as a finalized design proposal back to the surgeon afterwards.
Right.
And then that's basically a time where the surgeon, in more detail, can go through, provide feedback, make any other edits after they've gotten to think about it. And then when we get a surgeon's approval, we release the implants to production. And then leading up to surgery, our patient solutions engineering team will actually meet with the local team and kind of go through this patient specific plan with the people that are going to be in the OR. Oftentimes we'll get a surgeon on with us, and that's just kind of another check to make sure everything is accounted for. Everyone who's going to be there supporting that case, from the surgeon,
Yeah.
local representatives, and any of the healthcare providers, understand what needs to be done to make that successful. And I think that's kind of start to finish. That's really that process that makes this special, because we not only interview the anatomy up front, but we go through in detail at the end to make sure everything's set when that patient gets in the OR.
Right. And that's a factor of the uniqueness of each one of these cases. And that's really
Yep.
kind of just goes back to the reality of that's why this is patient specific. These are complex cases. There's no surgery is simple, but this is definitely complex. So it's really cool to hear that. So given we're 2024 now, the company was founded in 2015. What were the kind of innovations or technologies that basically allow this to be something that can happen today? Like if we could have done it earlier, I'm sure it would have existed. But between 2015 and now, I'm sure there's been changes in technology in terms of, I guess, some of the 3D tooling that you're talking about. I guess the process of manufacturing and so on as well. So, what were some of the key inventions or innovations that have allowed this to happen?
Yeah, so it's definitely the innovations, I think it's innovation in technology, and then it's the collaboration with surgeons and healthcare professionals. Because
Mm.
so for both of those, the innovations have been, industry driven. As new technology comes out, I think that kind of sets the tone for this is best in class. And then how do you keep driving that? So it's from a segmentation standpoint. So I know, Axial has,
Mm.
massively kind of increased the capabilities with segmentation, and also just speed and things like that. And it's not only quality that's critical when we're doing these patient specific cases. It does come down to speed. So speed is a driver in the market as well. So something
Mm.
that used to take 4 days, which now takes a day, and often sometimes less, is a significant impact in the ability for a surgeon to use a technology or not. Because, like I said, some of these patients present 4 days, 5 days ahead of surgery.
Wow.
So if
Yeah.
something used to take a week, you were already kind of out of that. So you're opening a market segment that wasn't there.
Mm.
And so in addition to that technology development, a big piece of it too is just kind of the collaboration with surgeons, because as more of the industry has been focusing on patient specific implants, the needs that are required for those from a technical standpoint
Mm.
are driving innovation by tech companies and by other companies to improve software. So improve design
Right.
software, improve image acquisition to get it faster, improve segmentation, improve 3D printing technology. So getting better resolution, faster printing, things like that are being spurred by the needs of the market, but also a patient population that was underserved. And now there's companies focusing on it that are kind of asking for that technology.
Right.
I think it's the innovation, but it's also the collaboration with surgeons that are spawning that development. And
Right.
it truly is a beautiful thing because
Yeah.
I've been with the company almost 6 years, and from the time we started to where we are now, the level of expertise that is in the market and what's expected across the board for these patient-specific implants has gone up, and it's raised the tide for all companies involved, which is ultimately giving a better product for the patient and surgeon.
And yeah, do you know, I love that. That's literally the kind of the image that came into my mind there was that, the kind of all boats are being lifted up by kind
Mhm.
of what you guys are doing. And it is that kind of thing as well, is that early stage with something new. It's kind of, kind of the slightly more forward thinking or innovative surgeons are looking for these better answers for their patients. But once that's kind of proven as this is a better way of helping our patients, and it becomes more and more widespread, you see it kind of accelerating. And some of the things you mentioned there, I think are really interesting, just for people to think about as well. Is that from a underlying technology point of view, like something as simple as getting images faster. If you're not in like that was one of the things I was surprised at when I kind of moved into the world of kind of medical imaging and so on, was that something that I would take for granted in a different industry in terms of transferring files from A to B using the cloud. That's not standard yet
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
our universe, and it's sometimes simple things that lead to change innovation. And on the other side of it, though, things like being able to additively manufacture these patient-specific instruments or devices, that's pretty groundbreaking as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really fascinating space to be. But like you say, it's hugely rewarding when you see that change happen. And what is like, if you look at the kind of history of medical devices, is actually kind of quicker than we maybe seen before with iterations of surgical instruments and approaches, I suppose. So I guess, but you've been with Onkos for 6 years. Um, what sort of changes have you kind of seen happen over those 6 years? We talked a little bit about some of those, but like maybe either from patient expectations or attitudes, or surgeon expectations or attitudes. Like what are some of the things that stand out for you in that sense? And then maybe we can talk a little bit about what you see happening in the next 6 years.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the changes in expectations are they're highlighted by where challenges arise and then how we
Okay.
overcome those challenges. So, a lot of the technology platforms are using are amazing. That's very rarely do we have challenges with technology. I
Right.
think, Onkos, we leverage the best in class technology. We partner with companies and we really find the best process to provide the highest quality precision implant for the patient.
Mm.
However, where the challenges do arise and some of the expectations are being driven by surgeons and patients is for the time and speed of that solution to get to them. So,
Okay.
honestly, as we kind of continually innovate, as we look at AI, machine learning, a lot of automation, I think the biggest challenge is still the human element. And that human element is the areas where surgeons and patients are kind of continuing to challenge and say, well, how do we get better? And when I say human element, I don't mean you know, the surgeon's clinical understanding or the skill of the surgeon. I just mean weaving that human element into a process that
Yeah.
we are continually trying to automate and make go as fast as possible. Because ultimately, all of this comes down to a surgeon being heavily involved because, again, they know the patient, they know the anatomy. We're helping them know it, but they know the anatomy.
Right.
And everything will come down to a surgeon being able to provide their inputs and approve a design. So that approval, you know, improving the areas there and making that approval go from 2 days down to 30 minutes or potentially approved on a call
Mm.
shortens the timeline that much more and provides that solution that much faster. So it's really just us as a company looking at understanding how do we weave in the human element, make that more efficient while also leveraging technology. So we
Right.
continually invest in tools to streamline those things from a case management standpoint, from the ways we interact with surgeons via different software, giving them stuff faster, getting feedback faster. I think they're all the things that patients from the outside, they don't get to see under the hood, but
Right.
when they do know how long something takes, especially if it's oncology case, the patient knows, I've got this timeline, so I have this window to get surgery. And for us,
Yes.
that's everything. That's our why. So we kind of not only look at investing in technology, but investing in ways to just make the process easier on a surgeon, which ultimately makes it faster.
Right. And then, like you said, at the end of that is the kind of the patient who in their head is going through a completely different kind of experience, just has that comfort that actually we're going as quick as we can here, and we're trying to help you as fast as we can and as best we can, which is
Exactly.
that's the amazing thing. It really is the amazing thing. So, um, where do you see the future around this? I think like you sort of hinted towards one of them is that like maybe that's a near term thing is that we can get down from 2 days to maybe 30 minutes to on a call. Where do things go next? What's going to change? I think over the like I know it's always hard to predict the future, but it's always interesting to just kind of think a little bit about it.
Yeah, I really think the advancements in 3D technology are being driven from the speed to solution. So we talked about the human element. We're continually working through that, and ultimately there's going to be a limited amount of time you can squeeze out of that because you want to make sure you don't sacrifice anything that's critical to the success of the surgery or the solution, which the surgeon's driving.
Mm.
However, I do think as we look at 3D technology with machine learning and, impacting orthopedic design, I think it's the speed to solution. So each one of the segments of the design process, such as segmentation,
Mm.
fusing different modalities to get to a
Right.
single model, I think that's the area where we're going to see advancements of imaging coming in and taking out some of the human steps to get to a 3D model. So I think
Yeah.
it's going to continually drive that. And just as our team leverages feedback from, the world-renowned surgeons we work with for every case, I think that machine learning piece, which is still heavily on the forefront, is going to allow us to automate some of the design pieces which right now are being done manually. And I think kind of what that will allow is we can iterate that feedback, but we can do it faster and you can
Yeah.
get to more of an optimal design with less effort. So making it more efficient so you can continually help more patients. So I think it's the speed to a solution and that implant design are going to be the two areas that I think AI and machine learning are going to have a massive impact over the next few years.
Very cool. That's kind of what we're hoping for too, from an Axial 3D point of view. And I guess the thing, just going back to something that you talked about a little bit earlier on, what that means, and sometimes I think there's people have a little bit of a fear around this when it comes to automation and the use of things like AI to kind of replace human effort is, I think for us and what I'm hearing from you as well is like that's not about getting rid of people as part of the process. It's freeing people up to focus on the really, really valuable things. Like for you folks in Onkos, is that helping and co-creation with the surgeon, where humans are working together to create a plan and a device that's really going to help somebody else. It's the automation is getting rid of the stuff that if it can be automated, why would we continue to do it? Which I think is fantastic.
That's exactly it. And that's honestly, when we look at it, like we're always going to have, a patient solutions engineer that is working hand in hand with the surgeon because,
Yeah.
we're never going to replace the surgeon because again, they are driving everything within the plan. We are assisting them. We are making the
Mhm.
process easier and we're, you know, doing everything we can to deliver as fast as possible. And that, automation and machine learning is never going to replace the pieces that humans are needed for, but I do think it's going to alleviate steps which are less efficient than they can be. And to your point, you can focus on the critical pieces so that way you can,
Right.
you can, I think we're going to change stuff that we don't actually know we're going to change because we're focused on certain things now. And then when we can automate pieces, that's going to allow people to continually innovate. And I think we're going to see
Yeah.
more technology driven out of that, just like the patients need things and they push us and industry partners to continually improve. I think our team is going to have time to say, hey, we can make this better. So then you could put focus on it.
100%. Like that's the really exciting thing here is that like kind of when you start to solve some of the bigger problems that occupy a lot of your time as the kind of the person who's leading on the product side of things are going to make sure that you're able to reach the patients that you're trying to reach or the surgeons you're trying to reach. When those go away, you start thinking about other really interesting things, and that can be a spark for even further innovation. So I love that. That's great. I guess just to kind of wrap up, any other thoughts or maybe like kind of any examples of I guess a case or whatever that was really impactful that just really really speaks to the value of patient specific.
I mean, I think I always go back to our My 3D pelvic reconstructions. So these are, for patients, especially in the oncology space. I listen to a lot of podcasts as well, and something that always resonates with me is a surgeon that we work with, or orthopedic oncologist, and he had mentioned that as the entire industry, more and more of a focus is being put on patient-specific instrumentation
Mm,
and either oncology or complex revision products, and which is amazing. But as a company, we work with a lot of surgeons. Those surgeons treat a lot of patients. So when, I always talk about this with my team because, again, my team is amazing. I truly, believe that everything we're doing is so impactful to patients, but I don't actually think we appreciate how much it's impactful because,
yeah,
this surgeon had said, I might see 20 patients in a day. So this patient is one of 20, but this patient that you're seeing has been thinking about this for days, weeks, months, potentially. So
right.
for them, they are the only case, they are the only patient. So, it's hard to pull out a specific example, but a lot of these My 3D pelvic reconstruction cases we do with, orthopedic oncologists all across the US, when we get feedback after the case that it went well and, this was exactly what the patient needed, that's kind of like it's just like a self-propagating. It just continues to fuel
Right.
our team to do more. And it really is supporting the development that, Axial is playing a large role in, other companies are playing a role in, because that is kind of the fuel to continually get better.
100%. I think that's a great way to wrap up our conversation, and I'm kind of very, very excited to see where Onkos get to in future with your efforts to kind of continue on this kind of patient inspired journey. So fantastic. So Rick, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it, and we'll catch you down the line.
Thank you, Rory. It was a pleasure.
Awesome.